We've seen that Mate Rimac, the actual CEO of Bugatti, has made a almost like response video to the last YouTube video I put out on the Bugatti Chiron.
News has just exploded across the car world after Mate Rimac, the CEO of Bugatti Rimac, reportedly stepped into the growing drama surrounding Mat Armstrong and his stunning rebuild project. What started as a simple YouTube rebuild has now turned into a full-blown rebuild war. Armstrong is trying to bring a destroyed Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport back to life, but the situation has become intense after the Bugatti CEO addressed the project and the internet erupted with reactions. Fans, engineers, and car lovers everywhere are now watching closely as the rebuild battle grows bigger by the day. But the real question everyone is asking now is this: will Mat Armstrong actually finish rebuilding the Bugatti, or will the pressure from Bugatti's CEO stop the project completely? Join us to find out. The moment Bugatti's CEO responded, the moment this story burst into the open, the entire car world seemed to stop and stare. What began as a YouTube rebuild project suddenly turned into a heated clash between a global hypercar company and a determined creator who refused to give up. At the center of it all was Mat Armstrong, a mechanic and content creator known for taking badly damaged supercars and slowly bringing them back to life. His channel had already shown viewers many wild restorations, but nothing prepared anyone for what came next. Not long ago, Armstrong revealed a project that immediately caught the attention of millions. Sitting in front of him was a severely wrecked Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport, one of the rarest and most expensive performance cars ever produced. The machine was once a masterpiece of engineering worth several $million. After a brutal crash, however, it looked like nothing more than a broken shell. Most people assumed its story had already ended, but Armstrong saw something different. Instead of walking away, he decided to attempt what almost nobody outside a factory had ever done before. He planned to rebuild the destroyed hypercar piece by piece and show the entire journey to the world. His audience watched closely as the car was taken apart, examined, and slowly understood. Every bolt removed revealed just how badly the vehicle had been damaged. Even experienced mechanics began to wonder if the challenge was simply too big. As the videos spread across the internet, the project began attracting attention far beyond YouTube. Car enthusiasts, engineers, and industry insiders started discussing whether such a complicated machine could truly be repaired outside the official network. That was when the situation suddenly became far more serious. The response came from the top of the company connected to the car itself. Mate Rimac, the leader of Bugatti Rimac, stepped in and addressed the situation publicly. His message carried weight because Bugatti vehicles are not ordinary cars. They are extremely complex machines designed to reach extraordinary speeds, and every part must work perfectly to keep the driver safe. The statement quickly spread online, and many people saw it as a warning. The company made it clear that rebuilding such a powerful hypercar without factory support could be risky. At those extreme speeds, even the smallest mistake could have serious consequences. For Bugatti, protecting safety and engineering standards was a top priority. But the moment that message appeared, the internet exploded with reactions. Some viewers agreed with the company's concerns. Others believed that if someone legally owned the car, they should be free to repair it however they wanted. Suddenly, what started as a rebuild video had turned into a much bigger debate about ownership, engineering, and control. And right in the middle of this storm stood Armstrong, still staring at the damaged machine in his garage, still determined to continue the project no matter how difficult it became. Yet one question remained that made the situation even more unbelievable. How did one of the rarest hypercars on the planet end up in such terrible condition in the first place? And why did so many people believe it was completely beyond saving? That stunning backstory is where the real mystery begins. The wrecked $6 million hypercar everyone thought was finished. Before the rebuild could even begin, people first needed to understand how such an extraordinary machine ended up in such terrible condition. The car sitting in the garage was not an ordinary sports car. It was a Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport, a vehicle designed with extreme precision and built in very small numbers. Only a limited group of owners around the world ever had the chance to drive one. Each unit was carefully crafted to deliver breathtaking speed, sharp handling, and unmatched luxury. Because of that, the value of a single car easily reached several $1,000,000. At one time, the vehicle looked exactly as the engineers intended. Its body was perfectly sculpted, the carbon fiber structure was flawless, and the powerful engine hidden behind the seats was capable of producing incredible performance. Everything about the car represented years of research, testing, and design. Machines like this are not just built in factories. They are treated almost like works of art. But everything changed after a devastating accident. The impact was severe enough to destroy large parts of the car's structure. Panels were torn apart, mechanical components were damaged, and some of the most complex systems inside the vehicle stopped working completely. To many observers, the hypercar looked finished. In the world of exotic vehicles, crashes like this often mean the end of the road. When insurance companies examine cars after accidents, they sometimes decide that repairing them would cost more than the vehicle is worth. In those situations, the car is usually written off and removed from normal use. Something similar happened here. The damage was so serious that bringing the car back to its original condition seemed almost impossible. For many people in the industry, the decision was simple. The safest choice was to let the machine remain a total loss. Eventually, the damaged vehicle appeared at auction. Wrecked supercars occasionally show up in these sales, but seeing a destroyed Chiron Pur Sport surprised even experienced collectors. The images alone told a shocking story. Parts of the body were missing, internal systems had clearly suffered, and the car's once perfect shape had been badly twisted. Anyone who looked closely could see that restoring it would require far more than basic mechanical work. Most buyers would have walked away immediately. Repairing a hypercar like this could cost an enormous amount of money, and many of the parts are extremely difficult to obtain. On top of that, the car's complicated engineering meant that even small mistakes could cause huge problems later. In other words, the risk was enormous. Yet one person looked at the broken machine and saw a different possibility. That person was Mat Armstrong. Instead of seeing a destroyed hypercar, he saw a challenge that almost no independent builder had ever attempted. To him, the damaged Bugatti was not just scrap metal. It was a puzzle waiting to be solved. But the deeper Armstrong looked into the wreck, the more frightening the situation became. Hidden beneath the broken body panels were problems that could make even experienced engineers nervous. And once the first detailed inspection began, everyone realized something stunning. This rebuild was not just difficult, it might actually be impossible. The YouTuber known for rebuilding unfixable supercars. As the inspection began, the excitement quickly turned into shock. The damage hiding under the surface was far worse than anyone expected. At first glance, the car already looked broken, but once the parts started coming off, the true condition slowly revealed itself. Piece by piece, the scale of the disaster became clear. Standing in the middle of the workshop was Mat Armstrong, carefully studying what remained of the Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport. This was not like rebuilding a normal car. Every small part inside a Bugatti is designed with extreme accuracy. Even removing a single panel required patience and planning. As the team dismantled more sections, the problems kept growing. Large parts of the carbon fiber structure had suffered serious stress during the crash. Carbon fiber is incredibly strong, but also very complex to repair. When it cracks or twists, fixing it the wrong way can weaken the entire structure of the car. For a hypercar designed to reach extraordinary speeds, that kind of weakness could become extremely dangerous. The mechanical systems inside the vehicle also showed signs of heavy impact. Components that normally sit perfectly aligned were pushed out of position. Several systems that control performance, safety, and electronics were no longer functioning. Each new discovery made the project feel heavier and more complicated. For viewers watching the rebuild online, every episode felt like opening another mystery box. Just when it seemed the damage could not get worse, another hidden problem appeared. The deeper the team explored the vehicle, the more they realized how carefully every Bugatti is engineered. This was not simply a car assembled from regular parts. It was a machine where every piece depended on the next. But the biggest obstacle was still ahead. Unlike common vehicles, hypercars rely heavily on manufacturer support. Many components are not easily available in the open market. Special tools, technical data, and factory-approved parts are often required just to complete basic repairs. Without that support, even experienced mechanics can find themselves stuck. That reality soon became painfully clear. As Armstrong searched for parts and information, something unusual began happening behind the scenes. Requests that might normally lead to suppliers or dealers suddenly stopped moving forward. Doors that should have opened started closing instead. It slowly became clear that rebuilding this hypercar would not only be an engineering challenge. There was another barrier forming, one that had nothing to do with tools or mechanical skill. The company connected to the car was beginning to pay attention. And once the manufacturer stepped into the situation, the rebuild project would face a completely new and unexpected problem that could stop everything in its tracks. Why Bugatti refused to help the rebuild. As the rebuild continued, another problem quietly appeared, and this one had nothing to do with broken metal or damaged carbon fiber. It came from the company that built the car itself. While the world was watching the project grow online, the manufacturer behind the hypercar had begun paying close attention to what was happening. The vehicle sitting in the workshop was still a Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport, a machine created by one of the most exclusive brands in the world. Cars like this are not treated like ordinary vehicles. They are extremely rare, incredibly fast, and built with complicated technology that only trained specialists usually handle. Because of that, the company keeps very strict control over how these cars are repaired. That control soon became the next major obstacle for Mat Armstrong. As he tried to locate genuine parts and technical support, something strange began happening. Dealers who normally supply official components could not help with the requests connected to this particular vehicle. Suppliers that might have assisted suddenly had no information available. The reason slowly became clear. The vehicle identification number connected to the damaged car had reportedly been restricted within the manufacturer's system. In simple terms, the car was no longer recognized as a vehicle that could easily receive factory support. Without that approval, many official parts could not be ordered through normal channels. For most mechanics, that situation would have ended the project immediately. Hypercars depend on extremely precise components, and replacing them with incorrect parts could affect safety, performance, and reliability. Without access to the right equipment or engineering data, rebuilding such a complex machine becomes incredibly difficult. But instead of walking away, Armstrong continued searching for solutions. If one door closed, he looked for another way around the problem. Some parts could be carefully repaired, others might be recreated using modern tools, and some systems could potentially be rebuilt piece by piece. It would require patience, creativity, and a deep understanding of how the machine worked. At the same time, the situation was gaining more attention online. Millions of viewers were following every update, watching the rebuild slowly unfold. Some people supported the manufacturer's strict approach, believing such powerful machines should only be repaired by factory experts. Others felt strongly that once someone owns a car, they should have the freedom to repair it however they choose. The debate kept growing louder. What started as a rebuild video was now becoming something much bigger. It was turning into a conversation about ownership, control, and whether manufacturers should decide what happens to vehicles after they are sold. Then the story reached an even more dramatic point. The leader of the company connected to the car decided to address the situation publicly. And when Mate Rimac finally stepped forward, the rebuild project instantly moved from a garage experiment to a global controversy that the entire automotive world could no longer ignore. Inside the engineering nightmare of rebuilding a Bugatti. The situation reached a new level when the leader of the company behind the hypercar finally stepped into the conversation. Until that moment, most of the drama had been unfolding inside a garage and across YouTube. But once the head of the brand became involved, the story suddenly carried much more weight. That leader was Mate Rimac, the man responsible for guiding Bugatti Rimac, the company connected to some of the most advanced performance cars in the world. When news of the rebuild reached him, the discussion quickly spread across the automotive community. From the company's perspective, the concern was not simply about one damaged vehicle. The machine being rebuilt was a Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport, a hypercar engineered with extreme precision. Every system inside the vehicle is designed to operate perfectly together, especially because these cars are capable of reaching incredible speeds. Even the smallest mechanical mistake could create serious safety risks once the car is driven again. Because of that reality, the company explained that repairs on such vehicles are normally handled only through their trained specialists and approved service centers. These technicians work with factory tools, original components, and detailed engineering data that are not always available outside the manufacturer's network. The goal is to ensure that every repaired car performs exactly as the engineers intended. As this explanation spread online, people interpreted it in different ways. Some believed the company was simply protecting safety and maintaining the quality of its vehicles. Others felt the situation sounded like a warning directed at the rebuild project itself. Meanwhile, Mat Armstrong continued moving forward with the work in his workshop. He understood the enormous challenge in front of him, but stopping the project was not something he seemed ready to do. The damaged Bugatti was already taken apart, studied, and slowly being brought back piece by piece. Turning back now would mean abandoning one of the most ambitious rebuilds ever attempted outside a factory. The internet quickly turned the situation into a full debate. Car enthusiasts around the world began asking the same question again and again. If someone legally buys a vehicle, even a rare hypercar, should they have complete freedom to repair it however they want? Or should manufacturers still control how those cars are fixed to protect safety and engineering standards? With millions of viewers watching every update, the rebuild had now grown far beyond a simple mechanical challenge. It had become a symbol of a much larger conversation about ownership and control in the modern car industry. Yet despite all the noise online and the pressure surrounding the project, the biggest challenge was still waiting inside the garage. Because the deeper the team went into the broken Bugatti, the more they began to understand something truly frightening about its engineering. This was not just a difficult car to repair. It was one of the most complex machines ever built for the road. The right to repair debate in the supercar world. As the rebuild continued, the team slowly began to understand the true scale of what they were dealing with. At first, the project looked like a damaged car that needed many parts replaced. But the deeper they went into the vehicle, the clearer it became that this was not a normal machine at all. Every system inside the Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport had been engineered with extreme precision. Nothing about it was simple. For Mat Armstrong, this realization brought both excitement and pressure. He had rebuilt several supercars before, and those projects were already difficult. But the Bugatti stood in a completely different category. Even experienced engineers often describe these hypercars as rolling laboratories, because so many advanced technologies are packed into one vehicle. One of the most incredible pieces of engineering inside the car is its enormous engine. Hidden behind the seats sits a massive 16-cylinder power unit supported by 4 turbochargers. This engine alone produces an unbelievable amount of power, and it operates under extremely tight tolerances. Every component must be perfectly aligned. Even a small miscalculation during reassembly could lead to serious damage once the engine is running again. And the engine was only one part of the puzzle. The structure of the car itself is built from a special carbon fiber monocoque. This type of structure acts like the backbone of the vehicle, supporting everything from the suspension to the engine and transmission. Carbon fiber is incredibly strong and very light, which helps the car reach extreme performance levels. However, repairing it is extremely difficult. Unlike metal, carbon fiber cannot simply be bent back into shape after a crash. If the material is compromised, the repair must be done with very precise techniques. As the damaged areas were examined more closely, it became clear that the crash had placed enormous stress on parts of this structure. Some sections looked twisted, while others showed signs that they had absorbed heavy force during the accident. Even identifying the full extent of the damage required careful inspection. Then there was the transmission system. In hypercars like the Chiron, the gearbox is not just responsible for changing gears. It must also handle an enormous amount of power coming from the engine while delivering smooth acceleration. This means the internal components must operate with incredible accuracy. If the gearbox housing or internal parts were damaged in the crash, repairing or replacing them would become another huge challenge. Electronic systems added another layer of complexity. Modern hypercars rely heavily on software and sensors to control how the vehicle behaves on the road. These systems manage everything from traction control to suspension adjustments. They constantly monitor the car's performance and make small corrections while the driver is behind the wheel. Inside the Bugatti, these electronic systems work together like a highly coordinated team. Sensors measure speed, wheel movement, steering input, and many other details. The data is processed instantly to keep the car stable and predictable even at extremely high speeds. If any of these systems are damaged or misaligned, the vehicle may not behave as intended. For a rebuild project happening outside the factory environment, this created a major challenge. Diagnosing mechanical problems is one thing, but understanding every electronic system inside a hypercar requires detailed technical information. Much of that information is normally handled only by manufacturer-approved technicians. Yet despite these obstacles, Armstrong and his team continued pushing forward. Each time they removed another damaged part, they carefully documented what they discovered. Every bolt, bracket, and wire harness was studied to understand how the entire machine fit together. Viewers following the rebuild online began to see how complicated the car truly was. What looked like a destroyed vehicle in the beginning slowly revealed itself as an incredibly detailed engineering masterpiece. Every small component served a specific purpose. Every system connected to another in ways that were not immediately obvious. This process also showed just how much patience a project like this required. Some parts had to be cleaned and examined before the team could decide whether they were still usable. Others needed to be measured to see if they had shifted during the crash. In many cases, hours of work were required just to understand whether a single component could remain in the car. At times, the project felt almost like solving a giant mechanical puzzle. One piece could not be installed until several others were understood first. If something was placed incorrectly, it could affect many systems at once. But there was also something fascinating about watching the rebuild unfold. Step by step, the damaged Bugatti was revealing its secrets. The more the team learned, the more respect they gained for the engineers who designed the machine in the first place. Still, the challenges kept growing. Finding replacement parts remained extremely difficult. Many components used in the Chiron are not produced in large numbers. Some are custom-made specifically for this vehicle. That means locating them outside official channels can be nearly impossible. This forced Armstrong to consider creative solutions. Certain parts might be repaired instead of replaced. Others might be carefully recreated using modern manufacturing tools. Technologies like 3D scanning and precision machining could help reproduce complex shapes if original pieces were unavailable. But even with those possibilities, the rebuild remained incredibly risky. Hypercars are designed to perform under extreme conditions. A part that looks perfect might still fail if it cannot handle the stress placed on it at high speeds. That reality meant every decision had to be made carefully. The team had to balance determination with caution, making sure that progress never came at the cost of safety. As weeks passed, the project slowly moved forward. The once broken machine was gradually being understood piece by piece. What began as a wrecked shell was now turning into one of the most ambitious automotive rebuilds the Internet had ever seen. Yet one important question still lingered over the entire project. Even if the team managed to repair the damaged structure, rebuild the engine systems, and solve the electronic puzzles, would the car ever truly return to the level of performance it once had? Hypercars like the Chiron are not just about functioning again. They are designed to perform flawlessly at speeds most cars could never reach. And that question created another layer of tension surrounding the rebuild. Because bringing the Bugatti back to life was one challenge, but proving that it could still behave like a real Bugatti once the work was finished would become an even bigger test waiting somewhere down the road. The ownership battle. By this point, the rebuild had already become one of the most talked about automotive projects on the Internet. Millions of viewers were following each update, watching every small step as the broken hypercar slowly moved closer to life again. What started as a risky experiment inside a garage had now turned into a global discussion about cars, ownership, and the limits of independent repair. At the center of this growing storm was still Mat Armstrong, carefully working through the complicated remains of the Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport. But the rebuild was no longer just about tools, bolts, or damaged panels. It had quietly become something much bigger. The moment the manufacturer stepped into the conversation, the Internet split into two different sides. On one side were people who understood the concerns coming from Bugatti Rimac and its leader, Mate Rimac. From their point of view, the issue was mainly about safety and responsibility. Hypercars like the Chiron are not built for ordinary conditions. They are designed to reach speeds that push engineering to its limits. When a machine is capable of traveling faster than most cars on the road, every small detail matters. A slightly weakened structural section or a poorly repaired mechanical component could create serious risks later. Supporters of the manufacturer believe that strict control over repairs protects not only the driver, but also the reputation of the brand. After all, if a damaged hypercar were repaired incorrectly and later experienced a serious failure, many people would still associate that incident with the company that built the car. From this perspective, it made sense that the company wanted repairs handled through their official specialists. These technicians have access to factory data, testing equipment, and quality checks designed specifically for the vehicle. But on the other side of the debate were viewers who believed the situation raised an important question about ownership. They argued that once someone buys a vehicle, no matter how rare or expensive it may be. That person should have the right to repair it however they choose. For them, the rebuild represented something powerful. It showed what independent builders could achieve when they were willing to take on challenges that many thought were impossible. Watching the damaged Bugatti slowly being studied and rebuilt felt inspiring to people who love mechanical creativity. This disagreement quickly became part of a larger global conversation often called the right to repair movement. In many industries, customers are beginning to question how much control companies should keep over products after they are sold. From electronics to farm equipment and now even hypercars, people are asking whether manufacturers should restrict access to parts, tools, or repair information. The Bugatti rebuild suddenly became a perfect example of this debate playing out in real time. For Armstrong, however, the focus inside the workshop remained clear. The discussions online were interesting, but the real challenge was still the car sitting in front of him. Every day brought another complicated problem that needed solving. Some components required careful cleaning and inspection to determine whether they could still function safely. Other parts needed to be completely rebuilt or replaced. In certain situations, modern technology helped fill the gaps where official parts were unavailable. Tools like high-precision scanning allowed damaged pieces to be studied in detail. From those digital models, replacement components could sometimes be recreated with remarkable accuracy. While these methods required time and patience, they demonstrated how modern engineering tools can help independent builders attempt projects that once seemed impossible. Still, the tension surrounding the rebuild never completely disappeared. Many people continued wondering whether the finished car could truly match the performance and reliability it once had. Hypercars are tested extensively before leaving the factory, and recreating that level of precision outside the manufacturer's facilities is incredibly difficult. Yet this uncertainty also made the story more exciting for viewers. Every update carried the same question in the back of everyone's mind. Could this ambitious rebuild really succeed? The damaged Bugatti had already survived a devastating crash. Now it was facing a completely different test. One that would determine whether determination and engineering creativity could overcome the limits placed by complexity and exclusivity. And as the rebuild slowly moved forward, one thing became very clear. No matter how the story eventually ended, this project had already changed the conversation around hypercars. It proved that even the most advanced machines in the world could spark debates far beyond speed and performance. Because what began as a wrecked vehicle sitting quietly after an accident had now turned into a symbol of something much bigger. A battle between tradition and innovation, between corporate control and independent skill, between what people say cannot be done and someone stubborn enough to try anyway. But the real test of this rebuild had not arrived yet, because bringing the hypercar back together was only the beginning. The moment of truth would come when the machine finally faced the ultimate question everyone was waiting for. Would this rebuilt Bugatti actually run again? If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.